discussion, I would like to give you a brief review and how many speakers at this panel. Mr. Jitesh Dev is a Chief Technical Officer from GEC. Mr. Bui Van Tie, he's a CEO from Vatec. Mr. Michael Carrington is COO from Coro Energy PLC. And our moderator, Mr. Dirk, he's a Senior Clean Energy Advisor from USAID. I leave my floor to you, Dirk. You look so nice.
Oh,
very handsome today.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, hopefully everyone feeling good today. And so we have gone through very, two exciting and very informative presentation from representative from China Solar and Nguye. And now welcome to the panel discussion. So for today, as the topic will be on the Vietnam, ICE green growth in buildings with the deep dive into solar rooftop. And as Jessica has introduced, I'm going to be the moderator of the discussion, and hopefully we can, together with the panelists, I can help deliver good and informative sessions to all of you. Together with me, as we all know that there are three other gentlemen who are very high reputable players in the market or quite active recently. And since we attend the online seminar that cannot give them an applause, please allow each of the panelists to give a minute to introduce themselves. Maybe we can start with Michael, Mr. Michael Carrington, the Chief Operating Officer of Coro Energy. The floor is yours, Michael. Michael?
Hi, sorry, can you hear me okay?
Very well.
Fantastic. Sorry about that. My computer screen went completely black there for a second. Happy Friday to everybody, and thank you very much for having me on the panel. So Coro Energy PLC is a London listed entity. Traditionally, we are a oil and gas business. And we are now focusing on the energy transition to a cleaner energy production. We're involved in the gas sector. We currently have gas assets in Italy, which we are divesting because continue of our strategy is to be solely focused on Southeast Asia. We also have a 15% stake in a gas asset in shallow water off Indonesia. And we are currently underway with activities in Vietnam, the Philippines, as well as looking for other countries within region for us to get involved in renewables. My background is 30 years in energy efficiency in the built environment. Primarily in the UK and across Europe, where I've done some advisory for UK government on carbon reduction, and then leading on to a holistic view of how we not only save energy, but how we generate the energy in a clean manner. So we are very interested in the Vietnamese market. We've currently set up a joint venture partnership with some local entities, VPE, and we're looking forward to getting started on that particular venture as soon as we can really get moving. We're also interested in furthering our interest within Vietnam, and if we could acquire operational assets, then we'd be very interested. So if there's anybody out there who's got operational assets and are considering divesting, please reach out to us, and we'd love to have a conversation.
Very nice introduction, Mr. Michael. So we also have another senior expert in the renewable energy field. So please welcome Mr. Tien, Mr. Bui Van Tie, the Chief Executive Officer of Vatec. Mr. Tien.
Yeah. Hello, Dirk. Hello, everyone. My name is Tien from Vatec. Very nice to meet you all here. That's the really good chance for us to share some experience, some information for what we can do next in the rooftop solar or in renewable energy in general. So about myself, I am an electrical engineer. I work in the EPN electric power sector for 27 years. And I engaged in the renewable energy in Vatec since 2011. At that time, there is no solar power, just the best smart, the wind blending and something. But up to now, Vatec engaged in the 175 solar power project in Vietnam. So with the total capacity of more than 24.5 gigawatt for what we did in Vietnam. So also the majority of this one already in COD in Vietnam already. And our mission is to do something to contribute to the development of clean development, to clean energy. I'm very happy to share to all of you, my beloved audience, what we understand, what is our experience, so that we can together for the clean and bright future. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Tien, for the introduction. We also have Mr. Jitesh, from the Chief Technology Officer from TTC, the Tang Group. However, it seems like Jitesh is having a bit, difficulties in joining, so we can leave the introduction for him a little bit later. And in the meantime, before we enter the discussion, I would like to, scope out or highlight the topic that today we will discuss. That we all know that green buildings in general, could cover different solutions, such as solar energy, natural harm, lighting, water saving, reducing waste. But within today's topic, due to the interest of time, we will only focus on the first and fundamental solutions among the mentioned aspect. It is the solar energy application in buildings, which is also, so-called as the rooftop solar PV. And since we are talking about the Vietnam market, we all know that 2020 witnessed the dramatical or booming, or we can say that booming development in rooftop solar in Vietnam that helped the country to achieve the total installation of over 100,000 systems in total, with the installed capacity equals to 9.7 gigawatt peak. So everyone was crazy about solar and rooftop solar at that moment, rushing for the deadline of December 31st. However, after the expiry of Decision 13, the market suddenly becomes silent. It also, suffer and become noisy with the legal legislation of some agricultural solar models, as well as the curtailment issues. The curtailment issues happen due to the significant impacts from COVID-19, the fourth wave, that drown out the electricity demand. Well, my panelists, what do you think about that statement? What are the difficulties and barriers that hold the market development? Mr. Tien, as you are the current market player, how do you think? Can you, have some insight into that statement and the current situation of the market? Mr. Tien?
Yeah. Thank you, Đức. So I think that everybody in the audience hall today know very well that we have a rather long period of time that the solar power, and especially for the rooftop solar, everything fallen into silence since at the beginning of this year. It is because we don't have any policy from the central government for solar power development. So we have a policy gap without any policy since the early 2021. I think that the market now, because we had a very successful development for the last few years, just a certain few years, but Vietnam just a map in the world map that Vietnam become a solar power country with the more than 16 gigawatt solar within a very short time of very short period of time. And many big investors, many international big investors come to Vietnam to be ready for the next investment, but we don't have any policy for that. And at the time, there is a controversial story that many international investors is ready to build for the self-consumption at the industrial factory. It means that they just want to connect to the EVN grid so that they can supply the electricity to the factory only. And maybe if the EVN is happy to receive the surplus power, that's good. If not, they don't care. They just run for the long term to supply for the big industrial consumption. But actually, they cannot do because there is some regulation by EVN at the time connecting to EVN grid must be followed and comply to the Vietnamese regulation. At the circular 39 by the Ministry of Industry and Trade, MOIT, we also follow the revised circular number 30. It's important. And at the time, the COVID-19 issue caused a very big and severe problem to Vietnamese economy. You know, on business, a majority of the business in Vietnam are facing very big problem, and they must close due to the pandemic. So, you know, the power demand is very less. And at the time, it's funny, you know, in China is facing very severe crisis of the lack of energy. But in Vietnam, the supply is more than demand. So it's a funny story. So the supply is more than demand story cause a lot of problem for the generation sector in Vietnam. Not only coal-fired generation, but hydropower, gas turbine combined cycle, wind and solar farm and solar rooftop. We are facing to the curtailment requirement from EVN. Why is that? The curtailment is necessary, even though it is very sad story for the lender, for the investor, and for everybody in the industry. We don't want to have such kind of curtailment. But the EVN cannot run the power system with the unbalance. The unbalance is that the supply is more than demand. You know, for the electrical power system, the EVN, National Load Dispatch Center, must keep the load and demand equal to every moment around a year. So that is story. So I think that the curtailment requirement, the best story here just happened for a short time, for half a year only, for half a year, maybe in the mid-2022. And after that, when the economy of Vietnam come back to the normal operation, I think we have the much more electricity demand, and the supply and demand must be equal, and no curtailment in the future anymore. That is something I believe. And we also believe that in the future, we have the very good investment environment for rooftop solar and other generation.
Well, quite a comprehensive view of the current situation, difficulties, barriers, potential, and so on. Michael, as you know, in addition to that, do you have any comments? Because maybe you can bring the different perspective as a market engine, like Coro Energy.
Yeah, so I think what's useful to understand is that, you know, we are serving our shareholders, and we have to deliver value for our shareholders. So if you have that as a headline topic, you can start to see where the drivers will come. So, you know, as a new entrant, some of the points for discussion I would throw in is there's a very short to mid-term vision of the market. And when you're investing, it would be much more preferential to have a longer term vision, so that you can do the appropriate levels of due diligence, have that time, and be ready, knowing that there is a good length of time where you can be operational under a current set of rules and regulations. So, you know, if we could see a further vision by government of what they feel needs to happen and a phased timetable, you know, it'd be fantastic to work with government, you know, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of common ground between all of the entities that are involved in this marketplace. And really, we should be having a forum where we are talking together in what we can bring to the table, what government can bring to the table, and how we get that long-term vision. I think for us, it's been slightly difficult because of COVID, which has been, you know, exceptional circumstances and not the norm at all. And if we could have gotten into country earlier, you know, I'm sure we would be more advanced than where we are, but that's the rules we have to live with at the moment. Where we've had big values, and you know, this is always our strategy, regardless of what country we go into, we like to get local partners with an equity stake in the business, because we place tremendous value on that. You know, you cannot beat that local knowledge. So the partnerships that we generate are very much based on, you know, our international overview, access to money markets, and our expertise, and then coupled with that local knowledge provides a very strong platform for a business within each country. Some of the things we've had, you know, setting up company, I think we went to maybe 4 different sources for opinion and got 4 different opinions back. We had to, you know, pick our way through that. Obviously, our big driver is to be compliant with the law and the regulations, and that's the route we've chosen. But then you start to look at IRCs, investment registration certificates, and they become a little bit more difficult to get hold of. But we have to make sure we're compliant with the law first. So that's number one. But again, it'd be good to have some more clarity and more vision of being able to get IRCs and access the benefits that they bring as well. But apart from that, you know, Vietnam's a very attractive marketplace, and being able to do CNI, I think it's a very good first step. I'd like to see that evolve further. I don't think we should necessarily be prohibitive to clients who want to access clean energy, but only being limited to what they can put on their roof. So I think if we could have that as a phased plan, and we've done an awful lot of rooftop solar, as the numbers have shown, what's the next phase? You know, how do we deal with the issues that the grid has, but by still making it a very attractive marketplace to come and invest into?
Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mr. Tien. So we understand about the difficulties of the sector in general, as well as in some of the business case that happen in the market. And since you two have mentioned about the rules, regulations, as well as highlight on the policy gap that you know, we don't have any of the policy in practice in place since early of 2021 with the expiry of Decision 13. So I believe some of you, maybe 2 of you, have reviewed the latest draft of the feed-3, the feed-in tariff, number 3, so-called. It is the solar rooftop supporting mechanism, as well as the statement from area and MOIT representative. From that, I understand, you know, there's one good news that there could be feed-3 for rooftop solar. But on the other hand, we're uncertain that when it will be released. Hopefully it could be, you know, today or tomorrow. hopefully, but we are not sure. We are not sure on that. But if it is released, we know that it would come with some significant changes in the coming decision. For example, there'll be no uniform or fixed feed-in tariff, but the tariff will be, lower, will be different from size to size, as applied to different customer type, and it will be an annual review fit according to the solar and wind generation tariff frame. And it also, I know that it also promotes self-consumption cases with additional protective equipment. With that in mind, how do you think about that information? Could those change solve the current problem that we have addressed before, like the curtailment issue or the interconnection issue, or to deal with the gaps in the market? Mr. Tien, can you go first, please?
Yeah, thank you, Đức. As I mentioned earlier, the curtailment is something that must happen at the time, and maybe it lasts until next year, about June or July next year. So don't think much about that. And many blames from the the lender, the investor, and the contractor, and everybody in the sector, that why is the curtailment, why we must suffer a very big loss by the investment, and we have to facing with the terrible problem for the loan and the interest and something. But such kind of thing is a very short period of time, and it will cover. And I believe that it will be solar power. We will have the victory, and maybe all of you know very well that the victory is the government will target the FIT3 about less than 6 US cents per kilowatt hour. I remember that it is the 5.9 US cents per kilowatt hour. So for the electricity sent into the EVN grid. And there is some good news that according to the conference between the VCCI and the Green ID in August 19, that we know some speed from the MOIT office, so that the FIT3 for rooftop solar will be available. Now, given that it's not fit for the 20 year, but it will be applied to allow the connection to EVN grid with around 6 US cents, and it sends a green signal that the dispatch generation, I mean the self-consumption, and the generation will supply for the demand at the factory, at the lot places, will be allowed for that. And I think self-consumption will be no problem, but a little bit, a certain time that we need to wait for some certain time from now to the end of the year. I don't think that the government will say no to the FIT3 for rooftop solar, but they will open for the new chapter for that.
Well, I have the same feeling too. Because so for the self-consumption, it will reduce the pressure on the distribution grids, and with the self-consumption cases, or we call it net zero system, do you think that it is feasible, and whether it can bring financial benefit and to the system? Michael?
I think we have to understand what the drivers are here. Do we want companies to start taking environmental responsibility by accessing renewable clean energy? Yes, is the short answer. And there are a lot of companies out there who are wanting access to that. does MOIT want investment by local and international businesses within this sector? I'm sure they do. But reducing the FIT rate down to those sorts of rates aren't really encouraging. I think it was a 31% drop in tariff. So I think the power producers are the people.
Michael, excuse me,
Michael,
you mute yourself.
It seems like you mute.
Okay, sorry, my screen's gone black.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep, very clear for now.
Okay. So
Michael, you're mute again.
hello?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, I've got a completely black screen. I don't know what's happened. Yeah, so it's really about as investors within this marketplace, we need encouragement. We're looking at doing investments that are going to last for 20 years, and dropping the FIT rate down to 31% by 31% is not encouraging. Does the end user get that benefit? That differential of what's currently being paid for power, is that price reduction being passed on to the end user? It should be very unusual. We all know where energy prices are going and have gone in the past. So I don't necessarily, like I say, I don't think we all understand what the drivers are for doing this. If it's to assist with the grid and let the grid catch up, okay, I can understand that, but I don't think that should be done at the as a negative towards the investors. And I don't think it should be more difficult for consumers to be able to access renewable energy and reduce their carbon footprints, which is, as global citizens, something that we all need to do. So really, I think there's that need, again, going back to my other point of, we need to understand what government and the EVN are really wanting to do, and I think vice versa, they need to understand what we want to do. And I think if we can all come together, ultimately we can understand the common ground and come up with something that is beneficial to all parties.
I see. Given the fact that how to say, the government of Vietnam seems to promote the self-consumption, so what actions or approaches that should be considered in the moment, whether you should design the system generation that fit with the load profile of the factory below the roof, or you can suggest the customer for the hybrid system with the best application together with the rooftop solar. As a consulting firm, Mr. Tien, can you provide your insight or your comments on that?
Yeah, thank you, Luke. For the electrical power system, in the planning technique or the operation technique, so on, we want to have the supply is next to the load. That means the generation next to the load, so that there will be very less or zero loss for the transmission. And we also no need to have the long transmission line or the power grid to bring electricity from the remote power plant to the load. And according to the draft of the master plan, the DPD number 8 draft already in the Prime Minister table at the time. Every year, Vietnam needs about $15 billion for the investment in the power sector. So that's a huge number. So on we want EVN and MOIT or everybody working in the power sector want to have the rooftop solar on the top of the factory to be ready for supply for the self-consumption first. And then if the self-consumption, we don't have capacity to supply for own, so we need the remaining energy from EVN grid. That is the technique. That is the key for any electric power system. So not EVN, but MOIT and the government is now also prepare for the appropriate policy for that. And self-consumption must be majority. And the surplus power, about 20% or 30% of the energy would be sent into EVN grid. Why that? Because at the weekend time and the holiday time, the factory is closed, the factory is off. So at that time, the rooftop solar generation must send the energy into grid for the economy, and also to make it better for the performance of the investment from the investor perspective. So all of us here try to get the time that the government will issue the good policy as soon as possible. And let me share something about at the time there is some investor asked me that do they have the right to connect to EVN grid without sending electricity into the EVN grid? That's a very interesting question. So my answer is not. At the time, EVN is suffer very severe problem of the supply is more than demand. So EVN tried to knock the door of the existing rooftop solar and other type of generation to reduce the generation in order to keep the supply and demand equal. So EVN cannot sign any agreement for connection into the grid anymore, given that they have the commitment that they just make the rooftop solar for the self-consumption, but it is impossible at the time. But it will be okay for maybe next year, the first quarter of next year, I think.
Well, I think, possibly on that point, investors and developers like ourselves, if the economics of each project stack up, then we would consider, making some investment into transmission and substation, and accelerating that investment on EVN's behalf, where EVN could then come along and take that over from us. We know what the problems are. I think that together we can try and find the solutions. And I totally agree with you that I am aware of large international companies wanting to come into Vietnam and invest, and part of their investment strategy is to continue their operations with renewable energy, because they have an environmental obligation they want to fulfill. They're never going to have the rooftop big enough to generate the demands what they're going to have. So if we can have local ground-mounted solar or wind with a private transmission line with a substation in there, which then EVN could take over. So actually that would assist EVN in their investment strategy. It would help us have some clear vision of what we can do for specific clients. International clients are then coming into Vietnam and investing heavily, and it's a win-win-win. I think that's the kind of thing that we've got to look at for the area. Last time I was in Vietnam, which is unfortunately it seems like a lifetime ago now, I think the Vietnamese government one, that I think they've done an exceptional job with renewables, but secondly, I felt there was an aspiration for Vietnam to become a energy hub and start supplying power to your neighbours. Now that would be very interesting, but obviously EVN's got to sort out its own backyard before it can start considering going into other areas and the investments needed there. But again, if we had some clear long-term vision of what we're trying to do, then private and public sector coming together is a very strong partnership, and I think we need to build and build and build on that, rather than being stop start because people just get turned off from that.
Well, excellent point, Michael. I really like the idea of win-win-win. So everyone involved in developing the new projects will earn the benefit from a different aspect, from different perspectives. So one of my last question, because it seems like we're running out of time. So assuming that you can compose the new policy for solar and specifically for rooftop solar, so what are you expecting from the new policy or the new Fit 3 when it comes to place? Michael?
For me, I would love to see the possibility of doing sleeved PPAs, so that we can start to fulfill big demand for consumers who are never going to have a rooftop big enough for them. And we know what the problems are. I think we just have to find out what the solutions need to be, and that is working together. And that's the main thing for me. I understand the driver to reduce cost, but that's actually going to curtail investment. And I think we've had enough curtailment issues in Vietnam. We don't need another one. So, let's start to have the options where we can start to help one another, but also attract the investment into country so that it can get stronger and stronger and stronger. Vietnam's a beautiful place. The people are fantastic to do business with, and also have a drink with in the bar afterwards. And I want to keep going there and keep doing that as soon as it's opened. I think we just need to find the way of how we do it. I think as developers, I think we've got obligations on us to keep standards high, and make sure that we're doing long term rather than just jumping in and out and trying to make a quick dollar. So I think we need to come together stronger so that we can lobby government either as a strong trade association, but lobby government to start working more closely with us in that public-private relationship.
Well, real nice. How about you, Nguyen?
Yeah. So that we will have something very interesting. I myself, I promote for the policy that the rooftop solar mechanism must be available as soon as possible. The second, for the battery energy storage system also must be available. Must be have the incentive for the energy storage system to be available in Vietnam as soon as possible. Because as soon as in any nation, not only Vietnam, the more the volume of the renewable energy available in the electric power system, the more the complex of the operation. And in case there is the lack of the solar power generation in the nighttime or in the rainy season, so the battery energy storage system can be key for the EVN to operate the power system very well. So that is something I really need. The Vietnamese government must realize the incentive or the policy for energy storage system. And third, the dispatch generation. That means the local generation beside next to the door of the load must be have the higher priority for any kind of generation. And for look at to the very bad story in China for the energy, lack of energy at the time. And also we can hear that the president of China announced just some week, about 10 days ago, that China will not give any loan into the non-China territory coal-fired generation anymore. That means there will be no coal-fired generation in Vietnam for the project financing from China anymore. And of course, for years we know that Vietnam cannot reach the loan from the OECD country or any big international institution for the loan of the project. So it means the coal-fired power not only facing the difficulty in loan, in financing, but also facing the very anti-coal-fired power campaign in the world at the time for the green development. And what is the story of the LNG? You know, in Vietnam, there is a big portfolio of the LNG generation plant in the DPD number 8. So we may know clearly about that. But I think that from my personal opinion, LNG must be narrow to the limit that that can be economic to the electric power system and economy, because the LNG can be known as the expensive generation in the world. And you know, given that coal and LNG, coal-fired power, gas-fired power, it depends on the international price, international market price. You know, at the time, the coal price skyrocketed, nearly reached to $200 per ton. So given that the coal-fired power can be built, nobody wants to run coal-fired power anymore because the coal price is very much. And the same situation will maybe happen in the future for the LNG. So we must think about the other renewable energy instead of traditional one, coal and gas turbine combined cycle. Because we have already very good solar radiation in Vietnam. We have the good wind potential in Vietnam. Why not? And we can also secure the electrical power system operation by battery energy storage. Why not? So I promote for furthermore contribution of the renewable energy into the Vietnamese electric power system together with the battery energy storage. And the government must be aware of that. There must be an appropriate policy for that.
I think that's a really, really good point, what you raised there. I think that's, you know, needs a lot of understanding. You know, renewables can't do everything all the time, but you know, reliance on coal does need to transition through to, you know, gas as an option. But I think the headway Vietnam's made with its renewables commitment is absolutely phenomenal and is definitely a leading light within region. Let's build on that momentum and let's keep doing the good work that the country's done so far.
Right, but for that, I believe that we need to look into a bigger, bigger and comprehensive of the local context in terms of the energy cost price and also the retail price to people. Before I come to the wrap-up part, I wonder whether any of the audience have any questions you can raise your hand, or you can send a message to the Q&A box or the chat box, and the organizer will, or I can help to send it to the panelists. Just give on 1 minute for anyone if you want to have a question.
I think if we would just wait for some questions, I mean, I'd just like to say that the two presentations we had at the start from Trina and Grow What, I mean, absolutely phenomenal. You know, they are spending millions and millions of dollars in research and development, and this is another element that we need to tap into, so that we can get, you know, the best end output. And the two gentlemen from Trina and Grow What, I'd love you to reach out to me so we can have a conversation. You know, just they're thinking about the whole aspect of it, you know, getting more panels on a truck. It sounds simple, but they'll know it's not. But, you know, that 12%, you know, it's keep chipping away. Let's get that carbon footprint down. Let's use technology, and keep going forward. But that requires us to look at this holistically, and the only way we can do that is by all elements coming together and saying, right, what do you want, what can you do, what do you need? And that's how we get into that win-win-win I mentioned before. So yeah, I think all sectors are doing, you know, their bit, and when we come together, we'll be exceptionally strong.
Oh, excellent point. And I think that is the one of the best, you know, interesting part of the seminar or conference, that it helped to develop the business matching. So hopefully the follow-up conversation between Coro Energy and Grow What, as well as Trina Solar, could go well.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, it just shows the benefit of events like today, you know, that networking, making new friends, making new allies, and all of a sudden, you know, just through talking, we can start achieving the things we all want to get.
Yeah.
We have the first question.
Yeah, we have the first question, and actually I plan to ask to divert that question to you, Mr. Tien.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Mr. Nguye. If the renewable energy capacity is dramatically increased in compared to coal and gas, is there any you know, problem with the transmission system, whether the current transmission system are capable to withstand that significant increase in the, we call it the VRE, the variable renewable energy?
Thank you. Of course, as I mentioned earlier in the last minutes, the more the renewable energy volume, the more the complex, the difficult to the EVN National Load Dispatch Center, because, you know, for the renewable energy, the generation depend on the not by human, but depend on the natural. Because the human cannot control the sunlight or the rainy. We cannot control whether we can make wind or not wind. So of course, that's a very interesting question, that the more the renewable energy generation will cause some problem to the operation safety of the operation system. So I think I agree with you that there may be a problem for that. But, you know, look at to the world, what is the other nation in the world they can do? I heard that some European country, they target for the 100% clean energy in the future, very near. And there are some country, given that they have the coal-fired power, but they try to close the coal-fired power, and they will build battery energy storage system together with the more volume of the renewable energy. And to what degree that the power system of one nation can be saved in terms of operation. So it depends the calculation, some scenarios, dynamic stability and the static stability of the power system, even to the very severe scenario. Just worry about the big volume of the solar power, because in the night time and for the whole region, we are suffer to the rainy season, typhoon hit to the mainland, so that we lost a big volume of the solar power generation. So such kind of thing must be modeled in the electric power system analysis to give the answer that it will be okay for the operation. So in general, the number from 25% to 30% will be okay for any electric power system. And we also expect that Vietnam nation will have the stronger interconnection to the neighboring electric power system like Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, and some other ASEAN countries. The more and the stronger interconnection electric power grid, the more the easier for the operation and bigger the chance for the renewable energy to join in. And together, if together with the battery energy storage system, we can raise the percentage of the renewable energy up to 50%. I believe that.
I totally agree with that. Part of our investment profile is that we have a 20% stake in a company called Ion Ventures. Ion Ventures is a battery storage developer. They've currently attracted over 150 million pounds sterling for UK grid balancing and battery storage services. And you know, they're not unique in any way. There is huge investment coming into that sector into the UK, and I don't see any difference why Vietnam isn't in a position to be able to attract again that same level of investment. So I think solutions are there. I think it's a phased program, and again, if we all work holistically and understand each other's needs, I think we can really make some big progress into that and attract the money into country that it's going to need. And I think the export of power, as you've just said, Tim, you know, that works across Europe. We have, you know, subsea cables from France connecting the UK. And when the French are talking to us and being friendly, they switch it on, and when they're not, they switch it off. But that's politics. But the technology is there for having the solutions that we're going to need.
Right, but in order to, you know, significantly increase the number of VIE in the power system or power grid, I believe we need to consider the power system as a whole, and we need to have some, you know, base load power generation to balance with the variable renewable energy sources, which heavily depends on the weather condition like solar and wind. And we need to, you know, develop a roadmap before we have the renewable energy development roadmap. But this decision 2068 from the PM, the Prime Minister, and we need to you know, strictly follow the roadmap and put everything into consideration. We need to model, you know, with different scenario. Let's say it's like when the VIE is 20%, 25, 30%, and we need to take it as a whole, rather than, you know, significantly increase one part or one piece of the power type. And given that, I would like to wrap up our panel discussion today. First, I would like to thank the two panelists as well as the audience that have stayed together with us during the discussion. So for today, we have gone through the review of the current situation, the difficulties and barriers. We know that most of the most difficulties at this moment is the policy gap, as well as the impacts from COVID-19, the fourth wave that significantly drown out the demand and maybe create the curtailment in the power system. And we also have some insight on the expectation for the coming time. For example, like we want to have the solar victory for rooftop ASAP, and other options that should be legalized. Like, you know, I understand from Michael that it is direct power purchase agreements, but in Vietnam, it is somehow the synthetic models that apply for utility scale projects, and also other options like battery energy storage system that could be applied together with the rooftop system. And we also have some discussion on the potential of the market. For example, like we expect the market to become hot again by end of Q2 2022, when the demand significantly increase with the, you know, the factory back on life, back to normal, and so we will not see any curtailment anymore. As well as we have the new policy, and we can enhance the PPP, the private public-private partnerships, that we can come to a win-win-win model, as stated by Michael. So with that, I would like to again thank all of you and give the floor back to Jessica. Hi,
Thank
Jessica.
you. Thank you all. Nice performance. And yes, we must hold in our hands and keep moving forward, stay positive, overcome the scenarios that we are having, stay healthy and safe. And I have to say goodbye to all, and thank you so much to stay with us today. I will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Bye.